1.6 VTI 120 horsepower EP6C, 1.6 THP 150 horsepower EP6DT, EP6CDT. The only gasoline engine designed for the Peugeot 3008 is the notorious EP6. Base motor 120 horsepower. This is an aspirated engine with distributed injection and the Valvetronic system. 150 horsepower version. This is a turbo engine with direct injection, but without Valvetronic. The engine, frankly speaking, is not a gift, but you can live with it. The oil simply needs to be changed every 7,000 kilometers, at least. This eliminates many problems. True, an expensive fuel injection pump of a turbo engine can add up to expensive costs. Once 150,000 kilometers, you will have to pay at least $600 for it. With an aspirated engine, at high mileage, the Valvetronic system can cause problems. If you skimp on oil, then, in addition to other problems, the intermediate shaft gear, 0801.FH, will wear out and you will have to update the electric motor, 11,377,591,588, Valvetronic. It's more than $600 for each part. The EP6 motors also have an absolutely amazing adjustable pump drive, 1,204.56. If the roller wears out and a knock appears while the engine is running, then you don't have to spend $120 on the entire drive assembly. You can buy a good non-original roller. It will be cheaper than $30 and replace it separately. The timing chain of EP6 engines may begin to rattle prematurely due to wear on its hydraulic tensioner. The hydraulic tensioner has been updated constantly and for a long time. The latest revision, 0829.G3, should be installed. A hydraulic chain tensioner costs about $50. In the EP6 turbo engine, the throttle valve is located under the intake manifold, so oil easily gets into its servo drive, which floods the electric motor and in every possible way spoils its health. As a result, the damper begins to act up and errors appear on it. Occasionally it is possible to wash the servo drive and revive the damper. Otherwise, you will have to buy either a used throttle or a new one, 1636.72. This will cost $500. In general, we can talk for a long time about the weaknesses of EP6. The thermostat housing 1336.cc costs $180 and leaks treacherously sooner or later, plus the thermostat is not very durable. Once every 100 to 150,000 kilometers you will have to eliminate oil leaks from under the oil filter cup, from under the valve cover in the vacuum pump of the naturally aspirated engine. The oil supply pipe of the turbo engine will begin to fog up. Closer to 200,000 kilometers, oil consumption will begin. You will have to change the valve stem seals. By the way, a harmless vacuum pump can simply fall apart, and then the brakes will literally disappear, and all this trouble may end with the piston of cylinder 1 of the EP6 falling apart. This is the one closest to the flywheel, since now we are talking about a French car, as a result of refueling with low-quality fuel or if misfires occur due to wear of the spark plugs. In general, in order to live happily with an EP6 engine, you need to constantly and carefully monitor it. Diesel engines. 1.6 HDI 109 horsepower DV6TED4, 1.6 HDI 112 to 114 horsepower DV6TED, 1.6 e-HDI 112 horsepower DV6TED. Half or even most of the Peugeot 3008s we drive were equipped with the 1.6-liter 1.6 HDI turbo diesel. Before restyling, this engine had a 16-valve cylinder head. Closer to restyling, the cylinder block of this engine was covered with an 8-valve cylinder head. And compared to the gasoline EP6, these engines simply do not create any problems. They require standard attention once every 200,000 kilometers to sort out the EGR and the environmental system. The fuel system is very durable. The 16-valve 1.6 HDI in its relative youth was distressed by the stretching of the inter-camshaft chain, but the chains of the new revisions serve just well. And do not refuse adequate maintenance. Eliminate the appearance of oil at the joints of the intake tract, from under the injector seals. This applies to the 8-valve version. Don't forget to change the timing belt. 2.0 HDI 136 horsepower DW10CB, 2.0 HDI 150 horsepower DW10TED4, 2.0 HDI 165 horsepower DW10TED4, 2.0 AD 200 horsepower Hybrid4 DW10CTED4. Peugeot 3008 with a 2-liter turbo diesel is much less common. We also have nothing bad to say about this engine. It is durable and reliable. It just needs normal maintenance. Don't forget about the timing belt, 0816.K8. With high mileage, it's worth updating the camshaft chain, 0816.F6. Peugeot 3008 manual transmissions are quite reliable and do not create problems. The mechanics of the ML6C are installed with diesel engines and are good in any way. The BE4 transmission for gasoline engines has a flimsy gear selection mechanism, i.e., due to its wear, gear shifting becomes unclear. Aisin TF80SC 6-speed automatic transmission. Aisin TF70SC TF82SC 6-street automatic transmission. The Peugeot 3008 with 2 pedals is equipped with either a Japanese automatic or a robot of its own design. 6-street. The unit from Aisin received versions with a 1.6 THP and 2.0 HDI engine, as well as the latest copies with a 1.6 HDI engine, i.e. restyled in the last years of production of this generation 3008. It's hard to complain about the 6-speed Aisin. It's a reliable transmission. And so that it does not disappoint, you should update its oil every 60,000 kilometers. Any common ATF with JWS 3324 approval is suitable here, and the TF70SC TF80SC units are its updated and improved versions, roughly speaking, for a start-stop system. EGS6 6-street robotic gearbox. The EGS6 robotic transmission is a mechanics with servos for the gear selection mechanism and clutch. Today we can say with confidence that this robot is considered the best and most reliable. Some owners of cars with such a transmission are completely satisfied with it. If you drive slowly, then the thoughtful shifts do not get boring. So, EGS6 is found with the 1.6 HDI engine until the 2015 model year and on the hybrid version 3008. The clutch kit for this transmission usually lasts about 150,000 kilometers. The original clutch, basket and disc, 2052 Z1, cost up to $150. The release bearing, 2041.A3, will cost $140. A dual mass flywheel, 0532.Q4, will cost $300, $400, or $550 for a hybrid, but it lasts even 300,000 kilometers. The EGS6 robot is easy to maintain. Its hydraulic system runs on 75 watts -80 type gear oil. The reservoir with level marks is located directly on the hydraulic pump. After changing the oil and every 20,000 kilometers, you should adapt the clutch of this robot so that it works smoother. On the left, passenger side, hinge of the hood there are corrugated tubes to the windshield washer nozzles. On literally all Peugeot 3008s the pipe bursts in this exact place. In this case, the nozzles do not splash. Liquid from the windshield washer reservoir flows down from under the right wing. There are a lot of repair methods, from installing a rubber hose to connecting the brake through a suitable connector. On the right under the hood, under plastic covers, a power distribution system is assembled, which includes a BSI unit. This block contains a dozen fuses, 5 electrical connectors and the same number of relays, including a relay for the fuel pump, fan, power steering pump and other components. Not very often, but a soldering defect still appears. As a result, unpredictable electrical problems appear in the Peugeot 3008. The car does not start, the headlights do not turn on, the windshield wipers wave at their own discretion, and so on. A new BSI unit like this can be purchased for $170 to $200. Also, no one bothers you to buy a used unit or even solder your own. But practice shows that this does not last long. As a result, you may again encounter electrical problems. A thermistor 9,662,240,180 is installed on the main fan housing. This is not to say that it is short-lived. However, when it fails, the ECU begins to cool the engine more intensively, opening the thermostat earlier and preventing the air conditioning compressor from turning on. A new original thermistor will cost $70. There are many analogs for $10 to $20. If the Peugeot 3008 engine begins to vibrate excessively, or kicks appear when changing gears, then take a look at the silent block, 1809.44, of the lower support of the power unit. Due to its wear, the engine swings strongly back and forth, which causes vibrations and kicks. The steering rack of the Peugeot 3008 is hydraulic, but the pump of this system is electrically driven. This entire system cannot be called troublesome. However, the original electric pump 4007.year is extremely expensive, so you should be careful about hydraulic maintenance. Update the power steering fluid every couple of years. The front suspension of the Peugeot 3008 is based on McPherson struts. Let's start with the fact that the supporting elements of the struts, bearings, 5035.58, support, 5038.H3, and rod stop, 5033.F6, last up to 150,000 kilometers. In the original they cost $120, $30 and $15 respectively. Non-original parts are much cheaper. Original front stabilizer struts, 5087.64, cost $30 and last an average of 60,000 kilometers. The front wheel bearings, 3350.84, are rather weak and last up to 100,000 kilometers. The original ones sell for $60. The original front suspension arms, 3521.R3, are made of steel, with two pressed-in silent blocks. It costs up to $50 when assembled. Both front silent blocks, 3523.91 and 3523.91, can be purchased separately for $10 to $15 and pressed into place. The ball joints, 3640.73, are pressed into the steering knuckles, i.e. installed upside down and screwed to the arms with nuts. Ball ones last a long time and even original ones today sell for up to $30. The rear suspension of the Peugeot 3008 has a simple torsion beam, which swings on two silent blocks, 5131.H7, costing up to $40. Inside the beam there is a torsion bar, which today is increasingly bursting. It weakens due to corrosion. Naturally, you cannot buy it separately. Here you will either have to look for the entire rear beam to be disassembled, or weld it, which is very unreliable, or even insert a crowbar or pipe instead to restore elasticity to the beam. By the way, implanting a pipe instead of a torsion bar that has burst in half is not so difficult. The beam does not need to be removed. Access to the torsion bar and for a new part opens after removing the rear wheels. By the way, the hybrid version has an independent rear suspension with a monstrous subframe, 4 levers and shock absorbers installed at a large angle. Optionally, front-wheel drive Peugeot 3008s were equipped with a dynamic stabilization system for the rear suspension. In this case, both rear shock absorbers are connected to each other by hydraulic pipes with a control reservoir in the middle. When the shock absorbers of this system begin to leak with age, it is suggested that all its components, shock absorbers, pipes and reservoir, be purchased together, $5,272.95. They are not sold separately. The full set will cost $1,000. Typically, owners remove all these parts and install conventional passive shock absorbers. You need the shock absorbers and boot themselves. Passive rear suspension shock absorbers cost an average of $80. What else can you say about the Peugeot 3008 suspension? Sometimes original springs have to be replaced because their coils break off. As you remember, the parking brake on the Peugeot 3008 is electromechanical. There is one actuator, 4702.09, which pulls the main cable 4746.55, connected to the left and right cables 4746.56 and 4746.57. Problems with the actuator usually do not happen, but the cables rust over time and get stuck in the braids. Of course, they should be replaced in advance so that one of the rear wheels does not become blocked. What any Frenchman is good at is the body. Peugeot 3008 is painted to last and is well protected from corrosion. The joints between the body and the bumpers are not exposed to metal due to paint peeling, and the lower edges of the doors are not covered in bugs. In general, everything is fine with French metal. Swelling of the paint on these cars as a rule indicates an accident and unsuccessful preparation of the metal before painting. However, you shouldn't do anything at all in terms of protecting the body from corrosion. It is necessary to at least monitor the junction of the threshold parts from below to the bottom. Often its edge is noticeably affected by rust. In general, according to the experience of younger Peugeots, the sills should be protected from the inside with a consistent anti-corrosive agent. This will protect against the appearance of through holes in them for years. Peugeot 3008s with high mileage, which have not had good body care, can be recognized by very cloudy chrome, cloudy headlights and, which is more expensive to fix, by burnout lens reflectors. The headlight light will be very weak. The original windshield is also a bit soft and gets scratched quite intensively with frequent trips on sandy roads. The LEDs in the central brake light of the Peugeot 3008 do not last forever. They burn out one at a time. But the brake light can be disassembled and LEDs can be soldered either one at a time, or a piece of LED strip can be inserted there. Sometimes water gets into the trunk release button. Its outer rubber casing either bursts or begins to leak water around the perimeter. Due to moisture inside the button, false positives occur or it stops working altogether. A new original button, 6490R3, costs about $50, but there are non-original solutions for half the price. At the rear of the luggage compartment floor, in the very corners, there are plastic latches with spring-loaded tabs. Due to the transportation of heavy cargo, these latches break off, and as a result, the trunk shelf begins to rattle. This trouble can be easily eliminated by installing the original 7586 PR repair kit for $20. At the front of the cabin, the Peugeot 3008 tries hard not to resemble a compact van. The front console flows like a waterfall to the armrest. There is also a central handrail. It is not clear in what cases it is necessary to hold onto it and to whom, the driver or the passenger. A curious feature of the Peugeot 3008 is the second glove compartment, which is located directly under the steering column. And in the back in the floor, under the passenger's feet, on the left and right, there are hatches, and under them there are niches for small items. The finishing materials are not bad, but the first owners of these cars may remember that the manual transmission knob or the automatic transmission selector knob quickly wore out. The steering wheel braid was wearing out at an even faster rate. The dealer replaced the entire steering wheel assembly under warranty. All Peugeot 3008 have an electronic parking brake. The handbrake mechanism turned out to be more reliable than its button. On literally all cars, the button had to be replaced with a new, working one. The symptom is clear: after pressing or lifting the button, the parking brake does not react at all. The eyes of this button also break separately, then it works, but is pressed without the former clarity and elasticity. The original 470,706 cost about $80. There are several substitutes for $25. Replacing the button is not difficult. This part of the console can be disassembled in a couple of minutes. There are a lot of instructions on the internet. Original Peugeot 3008 keys are very simple and cheap. The rubber buttons easily wear through to holes. Replacing key bodies with new ones that are made with high quality and look completely original is not a problem.